I was wondering what you think of the argument that Mikhailo Minakov made that some of the civil groups actually contribute to the strengthening of the oligarchic regimes in Ukraine. The fact that, A, they are not transparent, we don't know who finances them actually, they don't report to the society, and so on. And the other fact being that we have seen this in the conflict around Naftogaz and other kind of energy entities, that these groups can be effectively used and incorporated actually by the oligarchic groups to exercise control and influence the state's decisions. So that's kind of like actually as a threat to the state.
You're absolutely right, if I can already reply. You're absolutely right. I mean, and actually some of these volunteer battalions were clearly, it's not a secret for anyone, they were funded by some of the oligarchs. So it is a fact that they would undermine the state. But this is also why, actually, I think the state structures need to, let's say, preempt any possible reason for them to demonstrate or to take up against the state institutions. I'll give you an example. In January or probably February, I was in front of the Verkhovna Rada, and there was a demonstration, maybe 200 people from different volunteer groups, volunteer battalions, sorry. I mean, they were all wearing their camouflage. Some of them claimed that were coming straight from the front. Some of them were young people who were just being trained and were preparing to go to fight. And they were all protesting against, the parliament, but the president as well, because, I mean, they felt that the level of social protection was not enough. And I mean, it is a fact that, I mean, in the previous presentation, somebody talked about Kafkaesque procedures to acquire documentation. I think this applies also to the volunteers, or to the people who've been fighting, to the point that, I mean, you may lose your leg, but you're not then entitled to have a compensation if this is not appropriately demonstrated. So, I mean, there are genuine reasons why these people were demonstrating, yet I think that actually there were people who were maneuvering them. Because, I mean, I was with Anna Nemtsova, and we were asking some of these the people who were coordinating, let's say, this group of demonstrators, and probably I had the impression that these two were Afghans. And they were kind of giving answers, but then they were always looking to the side, and there was another guy who was younger, more like smarter looking. He was wearing kind of camouflage, but chic camouflage clothes, and he was basically feeding these two guys the answers. So, I mean, maybe I'm naive or extremely suspicious, but I have the impression that he was there for another reason. So, I mean, what I wanted to say is that it's true. I mean, and in the volunteer battalions, I mean, we find everything. I mean, there are a mixed bag of everything. There are people who generally went there to defend Ukraine. There are people who wanted an adventure. There were people who had no other chances. But the moment, well, actually, they get structured and they get provided for and they get acknowledged for the sacrifice that they have endured, then, I mean, there is no reason for them to take to the streets, and therefore any other intervention gets published, gets punished, like Pravi Sector in Mukachevo.
Sophia, I'm thrilled you're doing this research. I'm totally interested in this, and a question for you. One of the sort of stories you hear that's floated around, and I'd like your assessment of the extent to which your research confirms this, denies this, is that when these fighters return back to Russia, this is a potential source of opposition to Putin. And so my question is, from your research on both sides, like, anything that you know about fighters who have gone to Donbass from Russia, especially the more irregular fighters who are going, is there a sense that these are people who come from groups that you think could be a threat going back? Do you have a sense from talking to people in these groups of how the regime is treating these soldiers when they come back? Are they being treated as heroes? Are they being treated as potential threats? Is this meme of a potential threat from these returning foreign fighters overstated? Is it something we shouldn't even be thinking about? It's just a blip. I mean, because there is this larger story there's this larger story of the fear of destabilization of foreign fighters who are going to the Middle East, returning back home, and lots of sort of counterterrorism concern about what these people are going to do when they're coming back. And I'm just sort of wondering from the people you've been talking about, where you fit Russians going to Eastern Ukraine into this larger narrative. Thanks.
Exciting question, Joss. Thank you very much. You just gave me a brilliant idea for next year's Danilov seminar presentation. So the thing is that we have to leave time pass. Time will tell, number one. Number two, I'd only interviewed one fighter / leader, and this is not a representative sample. What he told me that now Russian nationalists are coming back because of the ceasefire, and they're going to concentrate on more political activities. I would recommend at this stage to sit back and research on a daily basis what's going on, but I wouldn't go. I wouldn't drive conclusions. To this point, of course, there are dangerous people there, and or there are people who have dangerous ideologies, to put it better. And some of these people are getting trained, and then we don't know what will happen with the weapons that they're going to use while in Donbass. And many of them are anti-systemic, so they want to overthrow the government. That's what we do know. We cannot really foresee what is going to happen. It will depend also a lot on Putin's policies against them. How is he going to go on with the managed nationalism idea? What are they going to come up with?
Actually, to add to Sophia's argument, an association of veterans of Donbass on the separatist side just has been created in Moscow. We had a launching meeting in Moscow, so wait and see how it will work, how it will be funded. What will be the relationship with the state? Ralph, please.
Really quickly for Sophia, the photo you showed was very, very interesting, and it can be used to assess the extent to which these guys are actually supported financially by taking a look at their kit, especially taking a look at their weapons, and taking a look at the way that they carry the weapons. One of the weapons that one of the guys was carrying is a very sophisticated sniper rifle that's typically used only by Russian commando units. From back here, anyway, that's certainly the way it appeared. So, and it's easy to do that, by the way. Those guys look professional, if nothing else. Their kit was standardized, and those weren't just weekend soldiers.
You see, and without NATO's help.
Two last questions, Hilde, and then your question, sir.
Thanks very much, both of you, for very interesting presentations. I wanted to ask Sophia a question, and it's maybe a bit more general, but I just wondered, I mean, looking, since I've dealt with the Balkans before, and I know it's not contextually comparable always, but I think what you saw there is that to a large extent over the years, the civil society kind of got very marginalized, and there's been a lot of international kind of focus from the EU and stuff on building the institutions, maybe more than actually allowing the space for the civil societies to participate. So I just wondered, in the case of Ukraine, how do you see, how can one ensure that all this energy and is inclusive, that you could have an inclusive process, and at the same time manage to get through all these reforms that are also needed in Ukraine at the moment? And yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, this is the $1 million question. I mean, if I had known, I wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I I mean, it's very difficult to square the circle. I mean, you need to conduct reforms, but then I spoke with some people, and I found these conversations very disturbing, because I mean, they basically were proposing of rolling over whatever sort of participation of civil society, because it would be slowing down the whole process of conducting reforms. And I mean, this defies to me the very idea of the Maidan. I mean, the reason why the revolution happened was that people wanted to have a say in the management of their country. It's also true that one needs to understand what is the difference between having a direct role in the management and actually controlling. So, I mean, I think it's in the interest of the Ukrainian institutions to create mechanisms that allow civil society to participate in the adoption of major decisions.